On April 23, 1945, World War II was at a crucial moment. The Allies were steps away from victory and the Nazi Empire was on the verge of total destruction. At that time, Joseph Goebbels, Minister of Propaganda, was in a bunker with his family, Hitler, and other high officials, watching how everything around him was falling apart. Even so, Goebbels issued a proclamation to the German people in which he asked not to surrender. "I implore you to continue fighting for your city. You must protect everything we love and all future generations." The Battle of Berlin should inspire the entire nation to take up arms. Just a week later, Hitler committed suicide, leaving a will naming Goebbels Chancellor of the Reich. Consequently, with the death of the Führer, the Minister of Propaganda became the most powerful man in the Nazi Empire, right at the darkest moment of the war. The new Chancellor was aware of the danger of the situation, so he bet everything on a single strategy. He wrote a letter in which the last hopes of survival of the Third Reich were deposited. If the letter worked, Nazism could have a chance to recover in the future, otherwise he and his family could be considered dead. But what was Goebbels' career up to this moment, and what were the last days of his life like? To know the story of Joseph Goebbels, we have to go back to his childhood. He was born in Germany, in 1897, into an impoverished family. Since his youth, he was affected by a deformity in his right foot, a disability that prevented him from joining the army during the First World War, something that he always reproached himself for and that marked his desire for patriotic revenge. Goebbels was an excellent student. At the university he studied philology and history, and acquired the skills that he would later use in the Ministry of Propaganda. Over the years, his frustration with Germany's defeat in World War I and his anti-Semitism grew. All this brought him closer to Hitler, who amazed him with his charisma and his powerful speeches. Of the Führer, Goebbels wrote in his private diary, "A mind as brilliant as yours can lead me, Adolf Hitler. I love you because you are both great and simple. You are a political genius." Goebbels won the Führer's trust, and in 1926 he was appointed head of the Nazi Party in Berlin, a position he took advantage of to increase his power and become known for his virulent speeches, in which he promoted fear of Jews, foreigners, and all those who opposed Nazism. In 1930 he met Magda Ritschl, a party volunteer whom he married shortly after, in a ceremony that had Adolf Hitler himself as godfather. With Magda, Goebbels became a father and had 6 children. From his position, he organized Hitler's electoral campaigns down to the smallest detail, taking inspiration from the iconography created by the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, from whom he took the use of pamphlets, recorded speeches, torchlight marches, striking colors, imposing uniforms and posters full of subliminal messages. For this hard work, when the Führer came to power, Goebbels was appointed Germany's Minister of Propaganda. The goal of the ministry was to control German cultural life and influence it to agree with the Nazi imaginary, which is why it encouraged discrimination against Jews and the censorship of books and newspapers that gave a bad image of Hitler. Those who worked with Goebbels said that he was an impulsive and unpredictable boss, accustomed to mistreating his subordinates, and the American magazine Life wrote in 1938 that he loves no one and is loved by no one, but controls the most efficient ministry of Nazism. When World War II broke out, one of the minister's objectives was to control the radio, as it was the main means of communication and would allow him to send his message to the majority of the German population, while countering anti-Nazi propaganda from the Allies. Thanks to the scope of this medium, Nazism was able to build the image of Hitler as the savior of Germany. In addition, from his position, Goebbels was in charge of keeping the spirits of the population high, ensuring at all times that victory was within reach, even in the moments of greatest vulnerability for the Third Reich. In 1943, Goebbels gave a 2-hour speech that was remembered as one of the most shocking in the history of Nazism. On that occasion, he asked the population to commit to a total war. This meant closing all the factories that did not produce weapons, putting women to work in the war industries, and drafting into the army all the men who had previously been rejected. However, despite the fact that the minister's words were applauded and very well received, Hitler was not willing to abide by this speech, since he believed that for the moment it was not necessary. The situation continued to worsen for the Third Reich, and when the Allies reached the gates of Berlin, Hitler and the most important officers took refuge with their families in a bunker. The Führer appointed Goebbels minister for total war, but it was too late. Germany was in ruins and defeat was close. Goebbels suggested negotiating the surrender, but Hitler refused, stating that he would never be taken alive. The minister, always loyal to his leader, decided to stay in the bunker with his family. By that time both his wife and his children were with him, and Magda had suffered a nervous breakdown that left half of her face paralyzed. On April 23, Goebbels issued the proclamation calling on the people of Berlin to resist the Allied invasion, but deep down everyone was aware that the war had failed. After Hitler's suicide, witnesses claim that Goebbels was stricken with a deep depression, but he made one last effort to save the Third Reich from total destruction. He wrote a letter asking Russian General Vasily Zhukov for a ceasefire so that he could negotiate Germany's surrender on relatively favorable terms, but when the message reached him, Zhukov refused outright. On May 1, 1945, Goebbels became convinced that the war against the Allies was lost. When other officers insisted that he join them in an escape attempt, the new chancellor was blunt: "The captain must never leave the ship. I will stay here, since with my children and having a leg like mine it is impossible run away." It was then that Goebbels and his wife, certain that they had no future, made the decision to put their children to sleep with morphine and kill them with cyanide. For them, this gruesome end was better than being captured by the Allies. After this, they went to the garden of the Chancery and committed suicide with cyanide pills. Goebbels gave orders that once the poison began to take effect, a group of soldiers would give them a coup de grace to spare them the suffering. Thus the life of one of the most perverse men of the Third Reich came to an end. Thank you very much for joining us until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to learn about many more military events that left their mark on history.